Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today, where we break down all the market action for today's session on Thursday, January 16th. I'm Alexis Garcia, and here with me to give his expert analysis, he's like my virtual Yoda, or, I guess if we want to keep it topical, Ed, you're the Dale Cooper to my Laura Palmer. It's IBD News editor, Ed Carson. So Ed, like a bad X, the market's kind of given us mixed signals. The major indexes really struggled to build on yesterday's surge. So what are we looking at here, and what do you got for us today?
I want to take a look at a few stocks that were showing some strong action, at least early on. Vertiv, Energy Transfer, and Quanta Services.
All right, well, we'll get to those names, but let's just do a quick summary of the major indexes first. The NASDAQ down today about 0.4%, the S&P fractionally lower today, and the Dow down also about 0.1%. Small caps leading the way up about 0.1%. So let me go ahead and get the chart up here so we can take a deeper dive. Starting with the NASDAQ here, Ed. And, we talked about yesterday this 50-day line really being a key area to watch. We had a nice move yesterday, but this index reversing from those highs and finishing at the lower end of the range. So, what are you looking at here as things continue to progress?
Yeah, well, it was, the NASDAQ held on to the bulk of yesterday's gains. It's just that when we're at such key levels, modest moves can have a big deal. Now, 0.9% isn't modest, it's a solid decline. But, after regaining the 21 and 50-day lines, it went back below those levels. And it just shows you, you just look, the pattern over the last several weeks has been we rise for a few days, then we fall for a few days, we rise, fall. All we've really accomplished the past prior couple of days was getting back into the old range of chop. So maybe this was just maybe we pause here and we'll just rebound right back again because it's not like anything's really broken. But it was a little disappointing to see this kind of retreat.
And what are your thoughts then? Because we've had some economic data come in, but we're in the thick of earnings season. Really, that's kicking off this week with bank earnings. We've got a new administration coming in, so are we expecting more chop with some of these external events?
I think people aren't quite sure what to make of things, and it's just that sideways action can happen even if there's not a whole lot of underlying stuff. There's been chop. Chop happens a lot, and once you get past it, people will say, "Oh, well, that was great." It's sort of like April showers bring May flowers. Yeah, once you get to May, everybody's remembers those showers fondly, but it's not much fun being in the rain, and I think that's a lot of it. So if you're waiting for flowers, don't just stand in the rain for several weeks. I mean, you sort of want to be in that situation. I think people could have and probably should have taken advantage of some buying opportunities yesterday. They could have done it today. It might have been less successful, depending on what they did. But it's just the thing is you don't want to be too aggressive because you just don't know. There were stock, if you bought at yesterday's highs, you could be down a fair amount depending on the stocks. Some continue to move on. You want to be incremental. If this market continues to show strength, if we get up to 20,000 level, if the S&P can get over the 50-day line, those kind of things, then we could, then we're going to be, then you could start being more, aggressive. But we're not there yet. We could get turned away, we just don't know.
Right, and you mentioned the S&P 500. We're looking at the daily chart here. Again, that went down today, but that 50-day line, that key level there that we're paying attention to. So, what are your thoughts here?
I mean, it's right there, and it's right there. And I think if you got to the 6,000 level, it would be decisively above the 50-day line. And there's sort of a downward sloping trend line from the top there that you could sort of see. It would be getting above some short-term highs. There's a lot of things. If it could get decisively above, you might think it still wouldn't be necessarily all clear. It wouldn't be because you could always just roll right back over again, but it would give you a little more confidence. We're just not there yet. It's definitely, I guess also go to a weekly on any of these charts. I think just a weekly, just to put another perspective. We're an upside reversal week. All the indexes and all the ETFs we look at, they undercut lows early in the week from the prior week. Then we moved, and then we moved higher. So, and we're generally in the upper third or so, or even more on the ranges. So on a weekly basis, there is progress, but you could also then look, you can see it's not really changing, it's still definitely within the range.
Right, and I wanna take a look at, RSP. So talk to me about market breadth, because it seemed like it was improving, RSP up about 0.8% today, moving higher above that 21-day line, but we can kinda see the 50-day in the distance here. So, talk to me about market breadth in this chart.
Yeah, RSP has really come on strong this week. I mean, obviously it was much weaker than the S&P coming into this week, coming all the way down to the 200-day line, but it's bounced back. And yeah, the S&P was down, but RSP, solid gain coming up there. There really were definitely some drags, like things like Tesla and Apple and Nvidia, and some other names that just are big weights that just didn't have good days. Were dragging on the market, but there was definitely some underlying strength. That's why it's mixed messages. You look at the major indexes and go, well, it wasn't a good day, it wasn't terrible, it wasn't good. But then you look elsewhere, it was sort of a good day. So it's hard to know. I mean, it really is. It really is at a critical level, and small gains and moves. You could see like a 1% move, and this is above the 50-day line, a 1% move, and this is below the 21 day. So uh, it's just that kind of market, and you just have to be ready. Sort of shuffling your feet on a tennis court of basketball, where you're not leaning too much to the left or the right, so you're ready for whatever comes your way.
All right, well, let's take a look at QQEW. That's the NASDAQ equal weight here. And again, this up about 0.3% above that 21-day line. Same story, 50-day in sight. Any thoughts here?
Yeah, it wasn't as strong as RSP, but it's a similar pattern. It's found support at the 21-day line, moving towards the 50-day line despite the overall index falling.
Right, and we have seen some rotation here in the market, but let's take a look at the Dow Jones. Again, this one down slightly today, but again, in between the 21-day and 50-day line. So, what's a key level here that you're watching?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. It's right in between those levels. And it is interesting because Apple and Nvidia are both Dow stocks, and those were not positives. And so the fact that we did pretty well, other than that, I think is a positive sign here. The breadth was actually probably pretty good on the Dow, as it were.
Yeah, and let's just jump over to small caps because that was the winner on the day. This looking at the iShares Russell 2000 here, this one, holding just slightly above that 21-day, looking like at that 225 level. But as you've mentioned, we've seen a lot of chop here recently, but really rebounding after hitting this 200-day line.
Yeah, and I like that vertical line. It's like it needs to get above some of these short-term highs. It's not as strong as RSP and QQEW, but yeah, I mean, there's been some encouraging signs. There's been positive signs. It's just it isn't all the way there, and it could be short-lived. I think just investors just need to not take a too bullish or bearish stance. They always need to take things day by day. And I just right here, I think we're at levels where the market direction is still unclear. And so you really need to be flexible where you might, intraday, you might feel one way or the other, but you need to stay grounded and just think of, well, what is it really happening on the positive or negative side?
All right, well, let's take a look at the 10-year Treasury yield, Ed, because this one, again, falling sharply for the second straight day. We're now down about the 4.6% level. Um, I think that's probably reached the highest levels it's had here over the last year. But what is this indicating to you?
Yeah, it was positive. We had the inflation for that's what drove the market rally yesterday was tame inflation report, falling treasury yields, and today I think Treasury Secretary nominee came in and said some things that probably Wall Street liked about controlling spending and knowing that inflation is an important thing to take care of. And we'll see. And that, the Scott Bessent, just being picked was one reason why Treasury yields fell in late November. That didn't last, but Wall Street likes when he's talking. They tend to like what he's saying so far. So, but it didn't lift the thing. So it's at the 21-day line. Is it going to break lower or at least stabilize? As opposed to rising again, because that would be something that would really hit the rally if we went higher again.
All right. Well, let's take a look at some of the stocks you mentioned, starting with Vertiv Holdings. This one up about 0.4% today, building that side of the base. But Ed, it looks like it went just above some recent highs here. So, what are your thoughts with this chart?
Yeah, there's different ways you can think. Obviously, from a weekly perspective, this has made a strong move, especially from the lows of the week. It undercut some lows and came up. So it's been a solid week. Today it was, it's sort of flirting with early entries, that short-term high, almost a quasi handle. It was too low to be a handle, I guess. but it was basically a handle. So it came off of that. So again, this is one of the issues why you want to be careful about how aggressive you go in. This is definitely one. If the market turns up, this could do well. This is an AI cooling play, and some other things related to AI infrastructure. So you build those data centers. Vertiv is very much involved in that. The revenue growth, which had slowed for a while, has picked up once again. Earnings growth is strong in the latest several quarters. So a lot to like about this one. If you think positively about it, again, this is sort of like other things like whoever wins in the AI space, it feels like companies like Vertiv will do well because whoever's chips they're cooling, they'll need to be cooled, and Vertiv will do well on that. So this one definitely could move up again, but it also pulled back, and so it's just something that people should be paying attention to. I can understand if people said I took a flyer on this today, and it hasn't done anything really wrong, but it's just a little bit of a tentative market in that regard.
All right, well, let's take a look then at Energy Transfer. This one up about 1% today. Broke out just above that buy point yesterday, but still within the buy range here. So, talk to me about this chart.
There's a lot of natural gas pipeline and storage plays that are doing well. Maybe they're just running out of storage and pipeline for some of it, and their prices have also gone up. The relative strength line looks great on this. That's just been really strong. I mean, the stock has initially, especially after the real pop that it had from the bottom, okay, there was that, but then this price hasn't really surged, but you can see the market's been struggling, and so the RS line, which tracks the stock's performance versus the S&P 500, that's really continued to rise. There were probably early entries, yeah, a few weeks ago when it first really sort of broke a trend line, but it kept on going. Some solid earnings, but this is probably not one that it's made a nice run, that it's probably not one that's going to make this skyrocketing move, thing, but there's a lot of these plays in this group, in this sector, have been doing really well, and definitely energy prices sort of let this sector sort of go to its own beat. Like the rest of the market might have its own ups and downs, and energy can sometimes do its own thing. And so it's a nice way to avoid like everything falling at once kind of situation.
Right, and it'll be interesting to see how some of these natural gas stocks react because there's some anticipated moves from the incoming Trump administration that might unfreeze some of these projects. So, just a good sector to keep an eye on in general. Let's take a look here at Quanta Services. Ed, this is another electric name here. This one up 2% today and really powering above this 50-day line. Still building that right side of the base, but also looking like maybe possible move above that trend line.
Yeah, sort of just came right up from the lows of the base. So it was not looking good a few days ago, but just came right up, undercut support, which is that can be really bullish when you do that. Strong volume the last couple of days, broke that trend line up above short-term highs, above the 50-day line. Definitely could have played this. This group is really strong. It's the number 12 group out of 197. There's a lot of stocks in this group that have been breaking out or flashing buy signals. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of infrastructure that seems to be moving, and like whether it's chip plants or utilities or pipelines. There's a lot of things, and Quanta Services is involved in a number of those things. So, uh, yeah, heavy construction is really an area of strength right now, and definitely something that investors should be looking at.
All right, Ed. Well, that wraps it up for today. Thanks so much for your insights. We'll be back tomorrow with more market analysis starting in the morning with IBD Live. You can head on over to investors.com/IBD Live for all the information there. And we'll see you right back here tomorrow after the close.